Well, I- it sounds like we are live. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven channels. We are live. Hey, y'all. Hey, it's JJ Conway. I'm so excited to be with y'all here today. We have a Juneteenth VIP masterclass, and we are usually the VIP masterclasses, they're in a closed room, a closed environment. But our special guest today is so exciting and has got such important content that we decided to share it with everybody on a live stream. So come one, come all, go grab some paper and some pens, and make sure that you tell 2 or 3 friends that they need to be on this broadcast. Let me tell you a little bit about our special guest today. His name is Ishangi, and he is described as the Scribe of Many Frequencies, a multidimensional creator, educator, and cultural custodian. I like that. With over 35 years devoted to the study of history, economics, and identity. His work lives at the intersection of heritage and innovation, where ancient wisdom meets emerging technology. He is the author of nearly 10 books. He writes on cultural critique, historical deep dives, and financial empowerment. And his professional path includes a transformative tenure as a brand marketing strategist for the NBA, that's National Basketball Association for all y'all soccer players out there. And he continues to shape the narratives as a brand identity developer, graphic artist, and user experience designer. He crafts visual languages that resonate with clarity. And what's our word for the year? Power. Y'all. Okay. He is also a financial therapist, STEM educator, AI generalist, and he uses these tools to future proof communities. And Webe, welcome to our Juneteenth VIP Masterclass series. How are you this evening?
Doing Blacktastic. Give thanks for having me.
Well, fantastic. We're just gonna get right into it. I'm gonna turn it over to you. The floor is yours, brother.
Madase. Bless up, everyone. Good to see you. And I'm happy to be in this space. Giving thanks again, Sister JJ, for just having me here and all the work you do. Salute to you, giving you your virtual flowers, because I know that it is not the easiest thing to do in this space. So I just want to thank you again for allowing me to come back and visit with you and your platform and your listeners. And I hope that this evening, I want to thank you, the listener, whether you're watching live or you will be in the future, for taking some time out to listen to me run my mouth for a little bit about some topics that, I would think are very pressing topics, and hopefully you will by the end of this presentation. But I know you could be doing a plethora of other things. So I just give thanks for you taking the time out to sit down with me and listen to me run my mouth again. And without further ado, I'm gonna just jump right in because that's what I like to do. I'm a very visual person, so I do have slides to accompany what I will be putting in. And Sister, if you could actually give me access to upload the PowerPoint so it can be seen. There we go. Appreciate. And let me just make sure that it allows me. Yes, I'm able to dictate. All right. So I'm hoping again everyone's feeling well again this evening, and I'm excited to share this information with you. It's something pertinent. It's been on my spirit for a while, and as I've been developing this particular topic, it's 2-in-1 because I do believe that we're in a space now where so much is happening that many of us are more and more of us are becoming that deer looking in the headlights. It's just so much information, so many things happening that we just don't even know what to do with it, where to go with it, and really, to be honest, like what direction in regards to what is believable and what isn't. So this evening, what I want to do is really talk about some things that I think are heartfelt. It's specifically about our people. I say that because if I'm not, if we don't speak exclusively about our situations and we kind of blend it with everyone else's, everyone has their certain needs and demands. I want to get in the habit of us directing ours specifically to our needs, because I don't think it's done enough. So before I get into one of my, I would say, latest projects that I'm going to speak to you about, which is talking about AI, I really want to talk about the importance of finances. Real short, but just an introductory. As a financial therapist, I feel that there is a certain type of psychosis that we're going through, and with that is creating some mental issues. There's some doubt, there's some fear, there's some aggression, there's some misleading. So we're not sure what's again believable and what isn't, and it kind of stops us from trying to make or even go into a direction we're just kind of stuck. So I want to break us out of that by just giving you a different perspective. Hopefully this will at least, if not enlighten you to want to go this direction, at least want you to go out and find one that is for you and your family. So the first part I'm going to talk about is, what this is said is that I want to get into the mindset of us ending this intergenerational mental cultural lobotomy that we suffer from. And with that, I think it has us in this stupor. So you'll see here, I say that we are transcending. I really want to get into the fact that, we've been in this psychosis and doing this thing that everyone else has been doing generations before us. It's definitely time for us to think outside the box and do things differently. So we're transcending, but we're also transcending. This is really about getting to a point where not only we're going to, start to think different and act different, but actually put something in place so that we can actually see it in fruition in our lives and then also the bloodlines that follow us. So I really believe it's time for us to get in alignment with our assignment. That's what this evening is about. All right, so let's start out here. I want to put the onus on ourselves. It's time to look in the mirror, right? So let me ask you this. How do you want to be remembered? You don't have to answer it right now, but that's something that echoes in my mind a lot. It's not about I want to be known online, social media, and all of things that I'm doing on social media. I'm speaking about what is your contribution as a human on this planet in the time you were given. What do you want to be most known for, right? And Mark Twain had said this: the two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. So we all know the day we're born. But a lot of us are even in our 50s and 60s and still don't know why I was born. And it's by design. So I want to first point out that there is some forgiveness that we should give ourselves because some things we just didn't know. We weren't supposed to know. So with that said, we should also take some onus in realizing, okay, now I no longer want to be that victim. I'm going to do something about it. So when you think about how you want to be remembered, you think about the loved ones who've passed on. Well, and then we call them ancestors. I call them ancestors because they are stars. We're all star stuff if you know anything about Neil deGrasse Tyson. Um, so, the astrophysicist. But the point is that when we talk about our existence, we too will one day, if you think about your ancestors, you can maybe go back 2 or 3 generations. You probably don't remember your great, 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 greats, right? So, but you will become a great, 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 great eventually as time goes on. So the point is that, is there anything you can do that can, while your time being here, allow yourself to be remembered, not just because of who you as a person, but what did you put in place that your family benefits from? That's when I speak about how do you want to be remembered, right? Not because he was the fun uncle, but like, what did he put in place? Did he leave me like, 100 acres that our family still has 100 years from now? That's what I'm talking about, right? So it's more than about finances. It's about what you did while here and what you left for those to pick up on. So again, this is about ending that trance and getting into transcending, elevating ourselves, thinking bigger than ourselves, thinking after ourselves. So with that, I feel like we should think about measuring your wealth in days and not dollars. Okay. I believe what we're living in is a structural deficit that has become a norm. We think that struggle is what everyone does. That's what adulting is. We've made it synonymous with adulthood, and the actual thing about this thing is that structural deficits are something that is structurally in place to eat away at your money and your time. Think about this. Over 40% of Americans report feeling financially unhealthy. 69% of people are explicitly saying their salaries simply are not keeping pace with inflation, right? They're working more hours, but stuff is costing more, right? They're going to get second jobs and doing whatever they can to cut corners, but stuff prices are still going up. Gas is still going up, the price of groceries, etc. Grocery bills are up 20%, utilities 15%, but your annual raise, if you get it, is about 3%. Right. So that's telling you right now, if groceries are going up 20%, but your salary is going up 3%, it doesn't measure up. Right. You're already losing money while working the exact same number of hours. The dollar is devaluating, even though you're getting paid that same amount, but the cost of resources and services are going up. Right. This is actually a designed plan. And when you start to realize it's systemic, then it then you're able to figure out what that design is. I would think it naturally be intrigued to figure out what is that plan then, and then who are the people behind it. And when you figure out who's behind it, then you study that, then you can realize, okay, so what did they do? Because obviously, if they create a system for others, it's not working. It's not for them. It's to their benefit. So what are they doing so that it doesn't affect them? This is how you find a solution of reverse engineering. So this is really the rat race psychosis. Think about this. At age 18, banks will let you commit to $200,000 in student loans for college, but won't give you a $20,000 business loan. Think about that for a second. They don't want to help you prosper. They want to help you get in debt. All right. So we're not taught to be free. We are taught to be useful. We are taught to be a spoke in the wheel. We are taught to be part of what Garvey said. I'm not Garvey. I'm sorry. What Rockefeller said was that I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. Very profound statement, because he's actually put this system in place and it's still working 100 years after his death, and his family benefits. So it really comes down to budgeting. No matter how much history you know or not about money, about about economics, etc., it's really about budgeting. And we were never taught about one of the most simplest things, what I like to call the financial endurance number, or an FEN. Financial endurance number is basically a measure of time and not money. So when you think about a financial endurance number, is an estimate or close to exact amount of money you spend per month to exist. That includes all utilities, car insurance, even miscellaneous, food, lodging, if it's mortgage, renting, etc. These are things you pay every month. You have to, when you tally that number, that's the number you need to earn, at least, to be able to continue the lifestyle that you have. Right. So also an FEN is measured in time. The exact mathematical number of days you can maintain your current standard of living without receiving another paycheck before you run out of money. All right. So that's another way to see it, is how much money do I have in reserve in case I don't get any more money coming in? What do I have left over to maintain that lifestyle? So for example, say you have $3,000 to your name. That's all you got. And you have a daily expense of $100. Every day you're spending at least $100 on your lifestyle. And again, this includes T-bills, et cetera. Now, 3,000 is a very low number. I'm just using a roundabout number, fictitious number, but just say it's that. If you are $3,000 to your name and you're spending $100 a day, that means by day 30, that $3,000 will be used all up. So you basically have 30 days of your FEN. You can survive for 30 days. Okay. That is your actual wealth. Your wealth isn't how much money you have in your account or how much money you have in your portfolio. It's how much money you have to continue the lifestyle that you're living, right? How many days does that give you? And to me, it changed the whole perspective of things now. So think about this. What if you got laid off? Or what if you had no more income coming in and you had a certain amount of money? Instead of trying to, figure out how many days I have, using the FEN mathematical problem, you can realize how many days I have left. If I got $3,000 to my name and I'm spending $100 a day to live, I got a month to live off of this money, right? So what if you have larger numbers or even lesser numbers? Your numbers could be 14 days. It could be 30 days. It could be 6 months if you have a lot of money in your savings, right? But that's a number we should know. Once you know that number, it gives you a level of either security or you better get up and do something about it, right? So measuring wealth strictly in time exposes the extreme fragility of relying solely on a high salary. What if you were making $200,000 a year? Well, if you have a massive mortgage, you got luxury cars and incredibly high monthly expenses, your FEN might only be 12 days. If you're spending, say you're spending a month, you're spending, it could be $12,000, $15,000, $25,000 a month. That's going to eat up at that 200,000 if you do the division, right? So despite a huge salary, they're highly financially vulnerable, because sometimes when you have a lot more money, you kind of buy a lot more things you really don't need. Right. So they are deeply entrenched in this rat race. And in contrast, you can look at someone's making 50,000 a year, but they live completely debt free and they have highly controlled expenses and they've built some modest savings So their FEN might be up to 150 days with $50,000 to their name. So it really comes down to your expenses, and those expenses are based upon wants and needs. When you know what you need versus what you want, and you make those decisions, that allows you to extend your value, right? That's a conversation that we should have had when we were 18. Some of us are in our 50s and 60s and still don't know this. And we've been making it, getting by. But the other problem is that we're soon to retire. Do we have enough put away for retirement? Because once you retire at 65, they say you can live up to 15 to 20 years. So do you have 20 years worth of money that you can live off of, saved, and not in some sort of investment fund, which can be volatile and go up or down, right? Do you have the actual cash? So this is just, again, a precursor to what I talk about in financial therapy. My company, Crypto Woke Financial Sustainability Movement. If you go to cryptowokemovement.com, you can get more details. I'd be happy to be your financial therapist and actually put you on a plan so that not only will you live off your savings, savings and investments, but also I can teach your entire bloodline to change that and live the way certain rich white families have lived for over 2 centuries using the same black print I like to call manual to do it. All right. So that's just, again, an introduction. The reason why I'm talking about this is because, let me add this too, is that I also have camps that I have for, not only do I teach it for elders, adults, but I also have camps that I have for children and ages 14 to 25, young folk, because again, the earlier they know about how finances work, the better off they'll live their lives. A lot of us as adults, when we were 18, we didn't have a silver spoon. We didn't have an account that we could tap into. We didn't have any bonds or funds that were that are matured at age 18 and had like 5 or 6 figure returns. We started out with zero, probably working at McDonald's and trying to hustle and get to where we need to get, right? In addition to getting the college education or extended education and paying that well into our adulthood, still paying off those loans. So there are advantages in learning about this monetary game early, because when you do that, when you own your finances and the understanding of it, you own your time. When you own your time, then you can spend time on realizing or finding out, what is your purpose for being here? Why was I born? What was my reason for being here? There is a reason. It's just that money gets in the way. So if we understand how we can control money, as far as, getting out of debt, not having, again, being able to manage it successfully, then you have the freedom of your time, and then you can also now step into the next world. So this next world I want to speak about, because not only is it something alarming, but it's something else. It's a great invitation and opportunity for us to get involved with, especially when you look at it from a different perspective and not as a consumer, but a developer. So this portion I'm going to speak about in regards to the importance of information, us being in the information age, and how the information age needs artificial intelligence, which evolved from ancestral intelligence. Now, we all now know what AI is. We've been hearing it left and right. Agitation propaganda has done its thing. Everyone knows what AI is, but they don't know what AI is. But they're familiar with it, right? So the issue is, what is it? And what can I do with it other than from a role of a consumer? How can I use this to be an asset to my life, opposed to having to be complicit with the design that they have in mind, which is control. Okay. So I want to paint this picture here. This is a very, very important time we're in. And when you look at this self-assessment, it makes me think about how some of this stuff is cyclical. It's cyclical because we don't study history. And then when we do get information, we don't execute the information. We kind of sit back and wait for somebody else to do it to see if they can tread water. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times. Michael Hopf said that. And when you think about this cyclical pattern, when things are hard, when people got their back against the wall, they're going to find a way to survive, or they'll do their best until they can't live. They're going to go out swinging, right? And once they do find that solution, because it happens cyclically, then comes an array of good times, because they've overcome this hurdle, this obstacle. So now they're living in these good times. And sometimes when you live in a good time for a while, you get kind of lazy and forget your reason of how you got here and why. So then you become lazy, which allows those that were alert and assertive to become weaker. And once you become weak, in comes bad opportunities again. So this is a cyclical pattern that we're in. And if I were to ask, where are we at right now in this pattern? We are in hard times. Not only just economically, culturally, we're seeing, as far as the existence of people of African descent in the United States and our culture is being on attack, from, be it Project 2025, be it, the anti-woke culture, ICE, all these different things of us continually being on attack. Although folks will say, hey, but you're making the most money you've ever made. You're not enslaved. You're not in chains. Mentally, we are. But the point is that folks can say that we can go to restaurants and we can go and do have these certain liberties. But at the same time, as a collective, I see us going back, which is actually, again, a great time to me, because it's going to we're going to find these strong men and women. All right. So I want to include women, because that's oftentimes they're not included, and they actually are the backbone. We are essentially in dire need to have our sisters with us. And in some cases, in many cases, I'll even say, in leadership roles. Okay. But this is where we are. And I think that this is a cyclical evolution of a lesson unlearned. If you do not study history, as they say, you're doomed to repeat it. So in understanding history, I realized that history is always written by the winners. Napoleon Bonaparte said that what is history but a fable agreed upon, right? So we'll paint the picture, as the Pilgrims did, as the victims, that they were cutting off and scalping us when they were actually doing those things. We're the ones that gave them the smallpox through the blankets and killed off the indigenous folk here in American lands. But they'll paint the picture as though they were the victims, right? Because we weren't there today. So we're going to go by what they say, because where are we getting taught? Through their educational systems. We don't have our own schools, so their teachers are their teachers. So they're going to make it benefit themselves. This is why I feel there's a dire need for us to become the tellers of our story. Else it will be written or collaborated by someone, but also something else. This is why I call myself a scribe of many frequencies. You must become familiar, or you'll be left with whatever they will give you. That is, if there's anything to give. This is my assessment about 2030. We're talking about less than 3.5 years from now, things will be entirely different. And if we do not have anything in place to counter, if you want to survive and don't know how, if you don't know how to fish, but you desire fish, you're going to accept any kind of fish they give you. So this is why there's still time. We should be looking at things like AI and how can it be used to benefit us, opposed to just using it for fun, to make videos and pictures and images or checklists. All right. It's seriously in the days of have and have nots. And if you can think of any worst case scenario, when ish hits the fan, everybody's out for themselves. There's not going to be any type of, well, here, you can go before me. Nope. We saw that when the Ukraine war started, and how they even wouldn't let not only Black people on, there were people in Ukraine, and they wouldn't let them on the trains to get out of the city. They actually violently, physically pushed the men and women off the train for Ukrainians only. But even in that, when there were no more Black people to kick off, they were kicking themselves off. So in the end, folks are going to think about themselves first. So we must understand that. And when you understand that, then you know what you're dealing with. And you can prepare yourself to not even have to be in that place when people are panicking. So the digital divide is what I want to speak about. The real issue is not race, it's positioning in the digital economy. And positioning comes down to basically early exposure, environment, educational systems, and financial conditioning. I have here POATUS, and again, that's an acronym for People of African Descent in the United States. I use that terminology because, yet again, we're in a space where we don't know how to identify ourselves. We want to be called African American, Black, BIPOC. We're having these simple wars that have nothing to do with anything. And instead, we are looking to find ways to be occupied with the wrong things. And again, it's propelled by agitation propaganda. I call us people of African descent in the United States because we all come from that continent, and specifically melanated folks here in the United States. This is we're being affected the most. We are the target, and everyone else falls under or after us or through us. So Poatas have slightly lower averages, largely due to access gaps, not capability. It's not that we're intellectually inferior. We just don't have access. A lot of us don't have a lot of internet access, computers and laptops. We have mobile devices, but there are certain neighborhoods where the bandwidth is purposely lower, things of that nature. When we talk about uh, you know I forgot what it's called, redlining, and redlining communities, it's also technological redlining that's happening. Okay, especially when we talk about data centers, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the digital divide, literacy rates. People of African descent in the United States or Powhatan households are less likely to have home computers, reliable broadband, and that gap directly impacts skill development early in life. As far as education, the pipeline effects. Asians are more represented in STEM degrees, and STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math, and tech career pipelines. We're very seldom in these spaces. The economic layer, device ownership, software exposure, coding, advanced skills. We're not in this space. And if we are, it's very little to count and maybe token. But the point is that because we're not in these spaces, in these pockets, then we have no influence or dictation on the type of services or products that are being created. So we want to talk about how AI is not identifying properly people of African descent because they're kind of grouping us all together. Well, we're not in that space to design it so that they would properly define us or properly identify us. We're not in the space to create a chat GPT. I did see that there's a sister that created a Black version. But the point is that very few of us are in these spaces in technology, and we're using it, but we're not developing it. And the users don't have us in mind outside of being consumers. That's the point I'm trying to drive home, is that we must become more than just users, because it's being used against us. It's really about getting money from us opposed to helping us and aiding us. So this is all stemmed from oligarchs. My next to last book that I wrote, released actually last summer this time, it was called From Railroads to Robots. And this is basically a book that talks about the evolution of power and wealth, eugenics role in oligarchs and monopolies. And this book talks about the second industrial revolution, where we had the creation of oil, steel, and banking. And those folks behind that were your Vanderbilts, you had your Carnegies, and you also had Rockefeller. And I couple them with the current fourth industrial oligarchs of your Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, etc., and how they are basically, an oligarch is someone that thinks that they can make decisions for you. They want to control the world and make decisions for you, that you can't make your own decisions, which is control. So one thing I learned is that it's called something, and we're in a space called, it's called the saculum. And the saculum is derived from the Strauss-Howe generational theory. And it basically speaks about big events in history happening in cycles based upon groups of people called generational archetypes. They study these things. They study these things because they have the time to do it, because they own their money. They can spend the time to do this. We're too busy trying to clock in from 9 to 5. We don't have time for this stuff. We don't even know to think about these things, but someone has to make a system. That's what I'm pointing out. Folks that own their time have created a system to keep you busy, to make you useful. Okay. So each generation starts a new period that lasts about 21 years, bringing different social, political, and economic changes. These periods are part of a longer cycle known as the saculum, which usually lasts around 85 years. Now, when we think about this, 85 to 100 years ago, we're thinking about how we were just really getting adjusted with motor vehicles, electricity, oil, etc. So this is the eras, as I mentioned, about John Rockefeller, Carnegie Mellon, um, uh, uh, Vanderbilt, etc. Okay. So now although we're in the fourth industrial revolution right now, in industry 3.0, which is the third, was when the information age began. I'm going to talk about the age of Aquarius. We're in the age of information, right? Many fail to recognize that AI can't exist without information. That's what AI does. It takes and galvanizes information and spits it back out, right? So AI cannot exist without the information age, and IA, or information age itself, echoes a deeper origin, an older AI, which is ancestral intelligence. This is the first form of knowledge, wisdom, and data passed through generations. So information age is just a galvanization of history. So the information age can't be what it is without knowing the history, right? And the history is provided. This is where AI is feeding off of artificial intelligence. So now we're in Industry 4.0, which began in 2011, and we've seen these rapid tech advancements. You might have, if you're old enough, you've seen where we went from, from rotary phones or even dial-up internet to broadless, where you're always online. You're never really offline, right? Your phone is on, your laptop's on. We've seen robotics, cloud, the Internet of Things, biotech, quantum computing, blurring lines between the physical, digital, and biological worlds. We've seen this happen since 2011. In the last 15 or 16 years, we've seen this huge explosion of technology when you think about it. And it's only going to get bigger and greater and faster. So when we talk about Industry 3.0, the information age beginning, actually began around 1947, when information and communication technologies became the primary drivers of economic, social, and cultural change. Some of the features were core technologies, transistors and microprocessors, digital computers, fiber optic communication, and the web. We also see economically the shift where values move from manufacture of physical goods towards information, data, software, and knowledge-based services. This was called the knowledge economy. We also saw the communications change from near instant global exchange of digital info and massive scaling of publishing content to social media streaming, cloud services, email. When's the last time you wrote a mail and put it in the mailbox? We don't do snail mail anymore. Everything is email. Social impacts, new forms of work remotely, work from home, platform works, changes in education and civic participation, and reshaped media, entertainment, and landscapes. Challenges, though, are the information overload and attention scarcity. People need to they can't, everyone's actually at the average American reads are around fourth grade level, and they can only hold about 5 seconds worth of information because there's so much information and we get inundated. And in fact, they're not even reading it. It needs to be visually seen in a video. They can't recall after 5 seconds because there's another form of information put in front of them. So we're seeing all these things happening. This is that deer in the headlight I spoke about in the beginning. It's so much information, you don't know what to do. And you're trying to it stuns you. It puts you in a place where you feel like I can't move. I'm trying to process and I don't know what to focus on because I'm here, then I'm over there, then I'm over here. There's so much going on that this allows you to put yourself in a position to take control. You're reacting instead of proacting. Okay. So why does this matter? Because it said the data is the new oil and China is the new Saudi Arabia. It took just one generational archetype, a saculum, 100 years to make information the primary economic resource and a factor of production. Think about that. Most money is being made digitally through digital products, social media, things of that nature, than actually factory workers. Institutions, politics, business models, and daily life are restructured around data flows and connectivity. Ongoing technological advances, AI, the Internet of Things, IoT, biotechnology, continue to push the era into new phases, raising both opportunities and also ethical and regulatory questions. Like, how do we deal with each other? Like, people, you can be in a room full of people and notice how everybody, majority of them, are on their phone. We don't even socialize in person anymore. We socialize more on the phone than we do with someone sitting right next to you. The dinner table isn't even a dinner table thing anymore. People are eating in their own room, or if they are at the table, they're on their phone or they're being occupied by television or something like that. So our attention what's in front of us is being blurred onto watching what's on the screen. And we're responsible. I say that we're responsible. If we are upon completion of the current curriculum, it is apparent there's an opening of change on the horizon. We must do so with the original AI in mind, ancestral intelligence. Not only are we older than AI, artificial intelligence, we are the original AI, ancestral intelligence. Now is the time to study up on your ancient oral and written histories, for it may actually save us. The message is embedded in memory. It serves the memoir that bonds us through time, the collective, thinking about our purpose, our reasoning, why we're here. So to do that, before we go down that lane, I want to speak about what AI is, because we've heard it, we use it, but we don't really know exactly. Most don't know what it really is. So AI is when computers and machines are designed to think and learn like humans, allowing them to do things such as recognize speech, make decisions, or even play games. It's trained to notice patterns, make predictions, and get better over time by learning from examples instead of following step by step instruction like a traditional algorithm does. It's like giving a computer a brain so it can help us with tasks or find information more easily. So it expedites the search, right? When we were in school, when I was in high school, we didn't have Google. We had to use an encyclopedia and hope that the encyclopedia was current. In most cases, it wasn't. It was probably 20 years old. So the information was outdated. It definitely didn't get current information. So now you can just, you can even not even, you don't even have to type it. Just say, hey, Siri, blah, blah, blah. Ask a question and it tells you. But there's no research. And therefore, if there's no research, there's no recollection. You're going to forget that information in 5 minutes. Right. LLMs, or large language models, and the need for more writers. So what's an LLM? An LLM is trained on gigantic amounts of text, books, websites, code bases, threads, internet articles, just to name a few. And simply, they don't think like humans. What they're doing is they're predicting a word by word or pixel by pixel what is most likely to come next when you put in a prompt. So we see it helping us when we're helping AI. AI is really learning from us. We're thinking, oh, I'm gonna go in here and ask this question, and it taught me this. Well, AI is learning more than you're learning from it, because AI is learning your habits, your method of speech, your interests. Talk about algorithms, right? We know how we can get on the phone and talk about a certain topic, and then next thing you know, on Facebook, you see an ad for it. It's listening, learning, and dictating, also trying to get you to buy things or get you to buy into things based upon what the algorithms and those folks behind driving algorithms do. Now, I say this is important because when we talk about our story and we talk about the lack of the ability for us to tell our story, and I mentioned that it could be one day told by someone else, is the importance of us realizing that if we don't tell our story and LLMs pull information from the internet or from books or text, when someone goes to ask about our story, where are they going to pull it from? This is why I understand what's happening now is that we're seeing that there are those that will write on our behalf, those historians who don't want to tell our story, and they'll tell a lie, and that becomes truth. So we're seeing this with the erasure of Black history. We're seeing this also the fact, because we're not writing, and before you can write it, you need to learn it. So it means you need to do some studying, some reading. If you're doing neither of those things and you don't have a story to tell, so then someone else comes and tells a story. And then maybe 20 years from now, when someone asks, well, let me look up this Black history moment. Or is there a Black history moment? That information is going to come from someone that wasn't written by us. So it's going to be a non-biased perspective, probably to be into their advantage. Because again, as I said, what happens to history is written by the winners. So there's a need for us to write. There's an important, abundant need for us to write. Yes, we have our Chancellor Williams, our Dr. Clarks, our Dr. Benz, and Francis Cress Welsing who've written these books, but we need a new generation to continue it going. Because guess what's also happening? Black bookstores are becoming a desert There's very few black bookstores available. Amazon has taken them all up, has bought them all out, so to speak. And with that said, there are books that we can no longer, well, one day we'll no longer be able to get access to because they're going to shelve them. Okay, so we have to understand if we're not writing our story, someone else will. That's the bottom line of why we need to have more black writers. So let's get into deep learning about LLMs. Deep learning, as I mentioned, is learning your habits. We're thinking, oh, look at what ChatGPT did, or look at what Claude did. It did this for me. Yeah, but I bet you Claude is going to his other bots and say, well, look what they did for me. I'm learning how they like to do this. I'm learning what time they're up, or what are their favorite this or that, because they're learning, if not more, just as much from us than we are from it. Right? So deep learning works by using artificial neural networks that attempt to replicate the way biological neurons operate in the brain. So AI is trying to make a physical or a digital representation of something physical. It is trying to be us. Okay. These networks are composed of layers: an input layer that receives data, one or more hidden layers that processes it, and an output layer that produces the result. As data passes through these layers, the network learns to identify patterns, relationships, and structures that would be difficult to capture with traditional programming. Now, if you think about a child, they go through the very same thing. This is how they recognize animals, looking at different pictures, hearing their names, mimicking the sound. A deep learning model gets better from being exposed to large amounts of examples. So this is what deep learning is doing, and it is learning every day. It's learning right now because it's listening in on this presentation. It's learning about me, and it's not to say, oh, I don't want it following me, and I don't have any privacy. Those days are over. If you're living in the Western world, you have no privacy, so that's okay. I'm okay with that now. It took a minute for me to accept that because I felt I could have anonymity, right? But if you want to live in this world, if you want to have electricity and running water, you're going to have to accept the way their rules are, right? But at the same time, I can create buffers of how much access you get to me, right? So what's next in AI? AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. It's a type of AI that can understand, learn, and apply knowledge across different tasks, such as a human can. It means a machine could potentially do anything that we can do. And it's expected to be in effect anywhere between 2030 and 2050, the next 3.5 years, y'all. ASI is the next one. This called artificial superintelligence. And it goes beyond that. It's when AI becomes much smarter than the best human minds in every area, including creativity, problem solving, and emotional intelligence. Essentially, it's an AI that surpasses human abilities entirely. They're expecting this around 2040. So when you think about that, if AI becomes super intelligent and there's no need for humans, then what are we going to have? That should make you think about that. And if we're not planning anything now, we will have to accept whatever is designed. I choose not to do that. And I'm hoping that you will too. The effects of AI, why your job isn't secure. It estimates suggest that the automation could lead to nearly 25 million jobs being lost globally over the next 5 years, particularly in sectors manufacturing, retail, and transportation. We're seeing automation on the rise. I was back home in New York City and I saw in the airport a robot, a security guard. Late at night, I had a layover and it was very quiet. And I just happened to look up and I saw this robot dog on wheels scroll right past me ever so diligently and quietly with a camera on me, looking to see who was around. That eliminated that security guard that was a human. We're driving into cities, toll booths, people aren't there anymore. So we're seeing jobs are being eliminated before our eyes, but none of us are really speaking about it because we think, oh, this is a marvel. Now we can get, and eventually DoorDash is going to be automated. It's going to be a robot, or it's going to be a driverless car coming in front of your house and dropping off food. And we think that's something dope. When in actuality, it took the job of a human being, and that human being now has to find a job in another space. I want to point out this as well. This is something I teach in my financial therapy, is that America explicitly, when we talk about American jobs, every June there are 3.5 million collegiate graduates and 5 million high school graduates. That's 8.5 million students graduating high school, many of which are going to enter the job field. But it's hard to get a job when there's only less than, I think last year was 584,000 jobs created in America. 584,000 jobs, and there's 8.5 million people trying to vie for those same jobs. Not to mention the current labor force, where folks that are already in the jobs force that might have been laid off or need a second job are vying for those same $584,000 jobs. So when I speak about financial therapy, and what triggers is the fact that lack of money creates all of this anger, fear, breaks up relationships, and because of that, we're not focused on what's really happening. This is the rat race psychosis that John D. Rockefeller created. He wants a nation of workers and not thinkers. So those folks that are worried about trying to find another plantation to be on because they just lost their job, and there aren't many openings on plantations these days, is that we don't know what else to do. But as the Sacrum dictates, when you get pushed into a corner, you're going to find a way. If you want to survive, if you want to eat, you're going to find a way, hopefully legally, but you'll do what you got to do if necessary. But the point is, we don't want to be in these positions where we are forced to do something. We will not put ourselves in positions where we're already winning, and when these things happen, we're safe. Right? So anyway, business investments and profit. Businesses invest in profit, so they're going to automate their labor force. Whatever business you're working for, your job is not safe. And if a computer can do it, or a robot can do it and do it better, they will eventually move to that space, because robotics currently have no souls. So they don't have attitudes. They're not like, I want a water break, or I need a lunch break, or I need vacation. I have an attitude. I don't feel like doing my job today. Right? Robots just come and do what they're supposed to do. And if they don't do it, they'll put another robot in there. Humans are costly. So any business that wants to remain viable and their bottom line is profit, and most of their expenses is in salaries, they're going to cut the labor force and invest in robotics. In fact, I learned recently companies like Meta, Facebook, and a couple other companies jumped the gun and started firing tens of thousands of human workers, only to rehire them this year because they said the AI wasn't completely ready yet. And folks are coming back to their jobs happy and elated they got a job again, but not realizing all you're doing is enhancing the AI to replace you again. So if you're not here with a mission to stack your money and get you some land and do something that you can live off the land, you're going to be in the same position, and they're going to come when you least expect it, like a Christmas Eve. So the point is that we're seeing this is where businesses have no love for you. There's no tenure. They're not obligated to pay you for the rest of your life. So we need to remove that thing of, well, my job is secure, because there's no such thing of that in today's world. The average American keeps their job, 4.2 years. They keep their job and they have to find another one. Every 4.2 years, have to look for new work. So in retrospect, or not in retrospect, but in the throw around solution is, if people aren't working, they still need us to buy. The economy still needs people to purchase, right? Because robots aren't going to Disneyland. They're not going to Cancun. They're not going to purchase a car. They're not going to buy an Xbox or a laptop, right? So they need consumers still. So what are they going to do? They're going to think about offering a UBI, or universal basic income. And trust, whatever amount that they would choose to give us as a stipend will not be something that you can live happily off of. It'll definitely I believe it will be something you could barely get by, just enough. Okay, so don't think that that's I'm going to go on this permanent vacation and just receive money every month to live off the life I want to live. No, it's not going to be like that. Just enough to keep you buying. And if you are a consumer before investor, it'll hurt you the most. All right. So how does AI affect urban areas? Number one thing you might have been learning or hearing about is data centers. And if you know about computers, and if you're going to learn about it now, is that the way that AI works, we don't see it, but you're in front of your laptop or on your phone and you're putting in a prompt, but you don't see what happens behind closed doors. What happens is there are servers. Well, first of all, let me just talk about this. Interesting thing is when people ask, when they think about the cloud, you ever ask where the cloud is? When you're uploading your files into the cloud, they got you thinking it's somewhere up above. It's a data center. It's a building that has a bunch of computers that are hard drives that are holding your data. And these computers get hot because they're running 24/7. It's like that car engine that never turns off. So it requires cooling. And in most cases, America isn't in the colder climate, only certain parts of the year. But it needs to be in a colder climate, and or they'll use water to cool it. So they're using water as a way to cool these servers down because again, they're being used 24/7. So what that means is the water, where are they getting the water from? They're getting the water from the oceans, the lakes, the rivers. And these data centers now are popping up all over the place in America. You just do some research and you'll see that most of these data centers are in red line zones where Black people live, where people of high melanin live. They're putting these data centers there. So now we are forced, well, we're not forced, we don't have a choice, but we're finding that there are spaces in these spaces, people aren't getting adequate water access. They might turn in their faucet and get half the amount of pressure that they used to get because these data centers are taking the water. So we're seeing that companies like Google and Amazon are tapped into the municipal water that's supposed to be used to drink and survive off of, and instead they're using it to cool off these computers. Right? So 10 queries on a ChatGPT model uses up to a 16-ounce bottle of water. And some of us are using GPT and Grok and all those other Claude, et cetera, for the total wrong reasons. Just to use it, to make a picture, to make me look better so I can put it on social media. And it's not to say that data centers for AI is the only thing that uses water, because a lot of water is being used, to create meat, to create concrete, to build. A lot of water is being used, but it's been an exorbitant amount increase since AI has come on the scene because of these data centers. So the water depletion and access challenge, the high water consumption of data centers can create local shortages, forcing communities into competition for water, heightening health risks. Made worse by systemic barriers that limit access to clean water, focusing reliance on bottled alternatives. So they want you to drink now bottled water put in plastic. And plastic, if you know anything about plastic, it's an oil residue of runoff, one of Rockefeller's products. And I mentioned this in the book From Railroads to Robots that I wrote, talks about how oil runoff is toxic. It causes a lot of the cancers that people are dying from now. And it's not just in oil, it's in plastic, it's in the air, nanoplastics, it's things that we're storing things in. If you think about a plastic bottle, once it gets exposed to the extremities of weather, in shipping, if it's put in an airplane, it goes up in the airplane and it gets cold, so it may freeze because of the temperature is colder up there. Then it comes back down into a 90-degree temperature that instead sits on a dock for 3 weeks. The water, the plastic is leaking into the water. If you do if you look at the health records of how more healthy people were 100 years ago opposed to today, is mainly because of the processed foods, which really aren't foods that we're eating, and also plastics. So they're telling us, hey, don't worry about drinking the water from the tap, which isn't clean either, because if you think about the pipes and how old those are and the gunk that's inside there. But then they're saying, hey, go ahead and drink this plastic water. Okay, this is what we're being left to drink and survive off of. So Amazon invested $25 billion in Mississippi data centers in April. $25 billion. We're seeing companies investing in our neighborhoods that they gentrified, that now they want to use to also take the water. So how AI affects urban areas. Google dropped $4.75 billion to buy an entire energy company just to power its AI data centers. So rather than use it to power light and energy, they're just going to use it for the internet. Amazon also bought $11 billion of, they created an $11 billion data center that will power, that could power 1 million homes, but they're going to use it for data centers. Okay, so we're seeing these companies are highly vested in controlling energy. And these are in areas where you and I most likely live. So we're going to be either driven out, or these are going to become food deserts. And, you know, there's going to be a lot more health issues because, again, we don't have access to resources. So how we think about SpaceX, which is Elon Musk, Google, and Blue Origin are racing to build orbital data centers to solve AI's energy and cooling challenges, with plans to launch massive satellite constellations powered by solar energy. They actually want to put the data centers in space, which I think is better. But what they also want to do in space is they want to allegedly lessen the temperature or cool down the temperature of this planet by putting blockades in front of the sun. Now, when you own your time, which means you own your money, you can think these things, these bold ideas. Elon Musk, who, you know, he's basically not rich from his inventions, he's rich from the governmental contracts, but regardless, he has billions of dollars to think these ideas and actually put them into effect, to manifest them. I saw today that Musk is trying through SpaceX, he wants to control the Pentagon's artificial intelligence program. So again, we're looking at AI becoming militarized, we're looking at it being controlled, and we are sitting here marveling at the fact that I can get on, you know, Higgsfield and create a video that looks like me being an action superhero. Totally missing what's happening. Got us thinking about the entertainment aspects of it while they're building an infrastructure of control and continuing that. These are the things that we start to need to be looking at. So, you know, I talked about in here, not promoting the movie or anything, but Paradise on Hulu is a series. If you haven't watched it, gives you an example of some of the things that folks will do that they're already planning to do, and us not having a plan, you're not invited. You're not invited. Right. So this is my resolve for 2030. I'm calling out all folks, artists, whether you're a painter, graphic designer, illustrator, you do video, or you're a poet, or a lyricist, a musician, healers, if you're a shaman, you know, if you are, you know, any type of things in the field of medicine, if you're in tech, you do code writing, anything, engineering, farming, all types of artists that create something. There's a time for us to become our own solution. There is a symbol you see in the center there. It is the Aqaba horn, and that stands for vigilance, awareness, hope, loyalty, and action to one's nation. There is this horn that is being blared loudly. If you don't hear it, you should be hearing this frequency. We need to step up as a, what I like to call Gatla, and figure out a way that we can create our sovereignty, our protections, getting in these spaces and learning this technology as counters. We need to be creating our own robots, our own AI, because when they come for us, if they do, what do I have in opposition? I just saw a military robot the other day with an armed military robot. You think I'm going to fight a robot? I don't have a chance. But if I design a robot to fight the robot, I have a better chance. Right? So Wayne Chandler said this: all is mind and the universe is mental. We are spiritual beings having a human experience who chose to come back for a purpose. And I believe it's time for us to get in alignment with our assignment. If we understand the reasoning of why we're here is larger than a big salary and just chilling or struggling even, that because the species must continue to go on, right? We must continue living. We have children and they're going to have children, et cetera. What are we putting in place for them so that it'll be lesser for them, less hard for them than it is for us? If not, we are signing their doom. So we are the earliest recorded self-governing, and wireless invention. We are the original AI. And unlike your smartphone, we don't need a cord for self-charging. Let's marvel at who we are for a second. We get it wirelessly from sleep and sun rays, our recharge. Right? You go to sleep, you wake up recharged. The last wire that we had was to our mother when we received not only nutrition for 9 months, we also received massive genetic, neurological, and spiritual downloads, functioning and memory data responsible for the person you are right now. What am I talking about? That umbilical cord. That is the only wire we've ever had, the only one we've ever needed. And we received all that information that transformed us into the persons that we are now. We need to get back into that space. I even laughingly, playfully say to folks, like, when's the last time you cleaned your belly button? Because it's still an outlet. I put electrolytes in my belly button. I know that seems crazy, but I nourish that connection to my mother, who is connected to all other mothers on this planet, our ancestors, to ask for guidance and clairvoyance and protection. That is the one button that connects us all. And I call on to that to help me in the direction of where we're going forward. We have, and the funny thing about this too, in that region, we call it the core, right? So that is, your core, your abs and all that stuff. Yeah, the abs, we don't talk about that umbilical key or that umbilical cord is the key to your ancestors. So I think about that core as something that we need to get back into. When we talk about our heart chakras and our mental and spiritual, that core is where everything, I believe, is the spiritual brain. If we want to figure out where we're going to go next, how we can continue to persevere, we need to tap into that. Right. So we also have a built-in. We have this thing again about this physical phenomenon of the mental of the human body. We have a built-in waste management system, processing and delivering nutrients and foods to needed parts of the body while ridding the rest. You don't have to tell your body to do this or that. You don't have to tell your heart to keep beating. You don't have to tell your hair to keep growing. You don't have to tell your nails you need to grow. You don't have to tell your body to process what I just put in my mouth and to waste and keep the good stuff. It happens automatically. We are a physical phenomena. We are a machine. And when you understand that, you see everything else is a machine modeled off of us. So as much as we want to break down computers or know how your car works, let's figure out this model right here and what connections, what powers does it have to enable us to get over this thing that's coming. We must become thinkers and no longer workers. We have a defense system, an immune system that fights disease. All it needs to retain efficacy are natural elements in herbs, plants, fruits, and water. Our body can heal itself. You don't need Western medicine and their convoluted concoctions that are going to mirror or actually numb down the pain while masking the damage that's happening because you don't feel it. All right. So AI at its core, is pattern recognition. This is the connection I want to speak about next. AI at its core is the pattern recognition plus memory and decision systems. Modern AI or machine learning and neural networks, et cetera, is built on data storage, memory, pattern recognition, predictive decision making. Well, in our systems, we had the same thing. It just wasn't digital. We did the very same thing. Here's a couple examples. The IFA system of Yoruba. They were a pre-algorithmic intelligence and one of the closest conceptual parallels to AI. They use binary-like systems of the 256 Odu, were basically sacred patterns of text. Each Odu contains encoded stories, outcomes, and guidance. A diviner interprets patterns based on input, like a query, like a prompt. This resembles a decision tree or like a flow chart from A to B, from B to C. A database, a query system, a form of symbolic computation. Think of it like input, it leads to pattern generated interpretation and an outcome. It's not too far from what AI does today. All right. These are things that we've done. You know about the Dogon. The Dogon knew about constellations without a telescope. So we have systems in place. We just forgot these systems. And then what's worse, we forgot that we forgot. This is why history is so important. And this is why writing is important, to update that information for newer generations to interpret it correctly. The ancient Kemetic systems, their knowledge systems wasn't random. It was systematized and encoded. The Medu Neter was a symbolic data encoding. We see Medu Neter, but we don't know what they're saying. We need to be able to read Medu Neter because there's so much information right there in your face. Literally, right there. They wrote what you need to know, but we need to be able to interpret it. Sacred geometry, pyramids, temples, mathematical precisions. The concept of Ma'at, which is balance, truth, order, and like an ethical framework. This mirrors data representation, structured logic systems, and even early rule-based thinking. And another one, my favorite, is fractals. Fractals in African design is recursive intelligence. The Dogon, as I mentioned, about the Bahia and Ashanti, use fractional geometry in architecture, village layouts, art patterns like fractals, self-repeating patterns at different scales, which is basically a core concept in modern computing, graphics, and neuroscience, or neural structure, I'm sorry. And there's a book written called African Fractals, written by Ronnie Glash. And he basically was an ethnomathematician, and he challenged stereotypes of primitive design and linked indigenous knowledge to modern computational thought. So there's conversation, there's communication in design and sound. There's a movie that came out in 1997 written by I forgot his name, astrophysicist, but it's called Contact. And in this movie, it speaks about how there was a sound, a frequency that Jodie Foster, the actress, heard being an astrophysicist. She took this sound turned into symbols. They were able to turn into symbols. The symbols had mathematical equations, which turned into a blueprint to creating a time portal. So what I'm saying is there's codes within codes, and this is ancestral. This is stuff that we were doing before AI was doing what it's doing. So we are the original AI. We found ways to compartmentalize our information and store it for those worthy of interpreting it, if you know how to do the research. Okay. Here's some examples of fractal in design. You've seen these. People wear these on their shirts, their clothes, not knowing that there's possible hidden gems in there. I don't know if you ever heard about infinity, what is it called? Infinity graphs. Infinity graphs, where you can get on if you can look on TikTok, and you'll take an image and they'll keep scanning in, and it takes you deeper and deeper, and you see all these different worlds and different spaces and stuff. They call them infinity graphs. It's pretty interesting because, again, you can have encoded imagery and information in these patterns. You can see here on the bottom left, it was even in the structure designs, in the building structures, in the paintings. And and one of the things you might see if you walk down your neighborhood, you see any ironworks where there's fences around houses that have iron, that are made of iron. If you might see some Adinkra symbols, and they aren't modern. Some of these Adinkra symbols are the Sankofa sign, the heart Sankofa. And if you know about Sankofa, it means to go back and fetch it. If you want to know who you are, you got to go back and find out who you were, so you can find out where you're going. These are symbolic representations of our story still in existence today, and we walk by not even being aware of it because we forgot that we forgot this information. But it's there. And my favorite to the right, one of the most clever ways to store data and information was in hair braiding. Patterns that were sometimes maps for people to escape to freedom. I learned that in some places they would braid the pattern for a map from going from one area to another, and they would put certain areas where you could think about this now. If you're trying to escape from a plantation by foot to another area, you're talking about miles and miles of walking. There's no Holiday Inn. for you to go and stop by. There's no McDonald's, and these are, again, very poor examples of where you should go for nourishment and relaxation. But there's no McDonald's for you to stop by and get something to eat. So in the braiding of the hair, they had certain portions in the braids where they would show where there were watermelon patches. Watermelon patches were the food, the go-to food to both hydrate and put something in your belly to continue going. Watermelon patches. Isn't it interesting and ironic that they don't want us to be seen eating? We don't even want to be seen eating watermelon. When there was a mentality that was embedded on us to not want to eat watermelon. But watermelon is what saved us. So these are things, again, they don't want us to know our story. They are telling a different narrative so that you stay away from yourself. When you stay away from yourself, you don't know who you are. There you are, that deer in the headlights, not knowing what to do. Okay. So this is the part where I want to play for you. I got a little video I want to play, which I think is, again, the symbolism of our power and how they know it, and will give you little bits of information about it. And only if those that know will recognize it. Sacred geometry and cosmological theories and spiritual beliefs rooted in ancestry and the afterlife have profoundly influenced African architectural design since the beginning of civilizations. There is a planned, organic, and perfectly geometrical intention toward the architectural inventions of the land. When you look at Kemet from an aerial view, the pyramids, which is really called Mir, and you look at from an aerial view, looking down, if you were to take Orion's belt, which is really called the Sahu, and you put that on top of those aerial views of the pyramid or the mirror, they line up exactly. Egypt has always been synonymous with our ancestors bringing heaven to earth. It's said that the Nile is on the left. The Nile in the Nile representation in the cosmological sense is the Milky Way galaxy. So we're seeing representation how the intelligence of our people were able to take something that they saw in the sky, mind you, without the modern telescope that Galileo allegedly saw with, right? Or they claim his to be the first, and create the same thing they saw in the heavens on earth for you to see. Pi is closely associated with the mirror. And if you take the mathematical height of the pyramid and multiply it by 2 pi, you get an exact value of the perimeter of its base. There's mathematics in these things, and they're still standing. The homes they're buying today won't be up here in 30 years. They're going to be, they won't even withstand the foundation. They've not built with the same material. Of course, it's not stone, but our ancestors built with intention, and they built these monuments. They built these things, not just to have it for their days, but they knew that there was going to be uprisings coming and our story needed to be preserved. So they built these things to outlast even those invaders. So again, the information is still there if you know how to read it. But I want to play this clip real quick. One of the things that I saw, this movie called Soul, you might remember around COVID, it came out. Jamie Foxx was the lead voice, a character. But there's a scene that I'm going to play real quick. It's a quick 5-second scene. But when I saw it in the theater, I'm sorry, it was COVID. We saw it at home with a bunch of people. But when I saw it, I was like, wow, we don't even understand what they just showed us, what Pixar, Disney just acknowledged. Now, if you think about this, when you think about transitioning, you've heard stories about people that say, don't go into the light. When you go to the light, that's where that's going to heaven, right? And they say that we're climbing the stairways of heaven. If you're going to heaven, there's these stairways you got to climb up, right? And so in this movie that was made for children and adults, they had this scene. So let me make sure I can play this scene for y'all. Let's see. Can I get access? Sister, I think I need access. All right, let me play it again.
Are you?
Oh my goodness, help! So again, it's a short clip, but the point that you're seeing is that you see all these souls here are climbing up this ladder going to heaven. And it's a star.
Are
right?
you?
light is actually a star.
Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, help!
So what I realized is that this star is actually, I'm going to go back to my slides, please. Yeah. So what you realize is that this light is actually a star, and the star is Sirius B. This is a star that the Dogon saw that's behind Sirius A. And Sirius A is bigger, but they saw that this star, and this is exactly this star they're speaking about, Sirius B, is in the Sahu constellation. I talked about Orion's belt, and they put the aerial view, if you put it over the pyramids, that they line up exactly. So they created heaven to earth. Well, what folks don't realize, because they don't know the information, is that these pyramids were not tombs for you to be buried, for Pharaoh to be buried in. They were portals where souls come and they go and come back through. So if you look at this movie Soul, it's about souls and how they get to earth. So in this movie, they show that souls are coming to earth, or going away, going back to their essence, the Sahu in this case, Orion's belt. This is where they say we come from. And I had this huge explosion when we were watching this. It was like me and some friends and our kids. And we just, I mean, people looked at me like, what's going on? And I said, y'all don't realize what they just showed us. They acknowledged the fact that we are star stuff. This is where we come from, the Sahu, that our souls are, because our physical body is earthbound, but our souls, where do our souls come from? This is why I talk about what is your purpose for being here. You have a mission. To be here is not just to have certificates and make a certain amount of money. To be in this space on this planet as a human being, do you realize what you had to go through to be here? From the semen and the egg, and how only one semen gets to the egg to fertilize it. You were that part of that semen to be here. It is truly a blessing to be here, but also mission-based. And we spend majority of our lives not even realizing what our mission is. So it's a wasted life, because we got caught up into what Rockefeller wanted us to be. He wanted us to be useful, to be workers and not thinkers, and figure out why you are really here. Instead, get caught up into paying bills and attaining certificates that mean nothing, and then spending the rest of your adult life trying to pay off something that isn't even rewarding. This is the type of life that we've adopted, and we've been doing this for generations because we've been told that's what adulting is. Okay. Then there's the other African connection, the oral tradition. African oral traditions function like decentralized databases, passed across generations with high fidelity. Griots, knowledge keepers, acted like living memory systems. They were actual spiritual hard drives with loads of information that they would download into communities. Context-aware interpreters like AI responded differently depending on input. This mirrors distributed intelligence, contextual learning models. We used to know more than we know now. We got a lot of access to information, but we know so much less because we can't retain it. Real application of knowledge is being able to retain it at will. We got to refer to something. And all this comes from the lack of tuning in. We can get all this back, y'all. We can get in the gym and work out. Let's get into the spiritual gym and work out. Let's get our frequencies back. Let's get our strength back up. So let me talk about this real quick, and we're about to close out. So it's funny how people will believe in Wi-Fi, which are invisible waves, by the way, powering everything from streaming movies to storage in a fictitious cloud, wherever that is. It's not up there. It's in the data center around the corner. But still think energy, frequency, and vibration are just mystical nonsense. They don't want to touch metaphysics. They don't want to talk about frequency and how communication is better put through sound and also mathematics than the way we communicate. But they believe in a cloud. So let me ask you this rhetorical question. What is the oldest sound that you know? Really take a second. What is the first sound that you know? And I know you're probably thinking about your favorite song. You're probably thinking about the cookouts from back in the day. Nope, go further than that. You're probably thinking about, oh yeah, when I was maybe when I was born and the doctor smacked my butt and I screamed. Nope, go deeper than that. Go before that. I'm gonna give you a hint. Some say mom's voice. Okay, your mother's voice. I'll go even deeper than that. Your heartbeat. That was your first sound. That was the first sound you ever heard. And in that heartbeat, it's not just a sound, it's information, it's balance, it's frequency, it's coded data. This heartbeat, from the moment it was created in your body, is responsible for fueled you into creating four fingers and a thumb, your legs, your brain matter, your veins, your arteries, your white blood and red blood cells, your lungs, your reproductive system, your digestive system. This sound was encoded with information and instruction to build you. So frequency is severely underrated. And if we really spent time to think about it and embrace it and tap back into it via your core, as I say, that umbilical key or your umbilical cord, you could tap into something much greater than what we are and tap back into the reason why you chose to come here. So with that said, I wrote a book, a novel, my first novel. I've written 10, but my first novel, released that early this year, called 2048. And a lot of it's surrounded by what I spoke about tonight, an adventure story. But one of the things I found as I was writing this book, and it came to me as a spiritual download from my ancestors, is that there was this sound that I was hearing, but I didn't know what it was called. And I was just like, I got to find a way. First of all, what is that sound? And I got to find a way. It's telling me it wants to be part of this story. I had no idea what it was. And as I kept writing this story, the sound became louder and louder. And I'm again believing in frequency. So I said, okay, something is trying to speak to me. What is this sound? And I remember hearing this sound before at a festival. I said, oh yes, that's that. I don't know what it was called. Didn't know what it was called. So I get online and I try to look up what it's called. It's called an Mbira. And it's not just an instrument, it's an ancestral device used to tap to the ancestors and get access to the vault of information of our story, to tap into your memory. So I'm going to take a few minutes here. I'm going to play this video of when I went online to look up the Mbira and what it was. This video popped up of this brother, and I've followed him already, Joshua Mapanga, and didn't know he was a player of the Mbira. But when I played this song, this video, immediately the doors opened, the tears flowed, the purpose was confirmed. So let me play this video for y'all. Let me see. Wrong one. Here we go. Go to that one. Okay, I'm trying. Let me move that one. Here we go. Okay, so it won't let me. I guess I gotta remove them to get it to play. Oh, come on now. Play it. Is there a way to? I'm trying to play this video. Oh, come on. You gotta let me play it. I hyped it up. There we go. Hoy, hoy! Yo. Oh, man. I don't know. I hope you felt that like I do every time I hear it. It is definitely makes me understand we are more than what we think we are. And there is something, and I say something backed by someone's doing his damnedest to keep us from tapping into things like that. Because when you tap into something like that, you realize all this other stuff is an illusion. It's a diversion. It's part of a system to keep you from not knowing yourself and playing into their plan. All we need to do is focus on self and defend self. And I think things will be different. This is that saculum I'm speaking about, us being back into that corner. Is that we are in a time right now where we have to make some serious choices. And we're not alone in it because there are those that have created, I would say, things in place to assist us and aid us in this. And we don't know where we're going or how we're going to get there. But I do believe if you start walking, you're going to be better close to getting there than not. So this is really something I hope you take home with you is the importance of ancestral connection, whatever it is, preferably non-religious based as possible. Because when you look at religion, and not to open this wound, but in most cases, those religions were not founded by us and they're not governed by us. They were forced on us. So if we predate and do what ancestor Asa Hilliard said, study history in chronological order, we were doing things before there was man-made religions. We were more in tune with ourselves and our purposes of being here and what my experience was supposed to be. My experience doesn't have to be struggle. Now I realize it's a choice. Okay? You don't have to inherit what they have planned for you. So this is part of Ubuntu philosophy, this ethical ancestral intelligence blueprint. The philosophy of Ubuntu is I am because we are. It introduces something modern AI struggles with: collective well-being. See, AI doesn't have a soul yet. But it's a collective well-being over an individual gain. Ethical relational intelligence. This is highly relevant today as people try to build in AI space ethical AI systems and human-centered machine intelligence. They're still trying to build these things. They're actually building a monster. It's Frankenstein, y'all. So we have to understand what's being built to control us is more dangerous because they don't even understand its power. They have the audacity to think that they can control AI. You're not going to be able to control artificial superintelligence unless you created artificial and superintelligence to counter it. That's another discussion, though. But anyway, the African connection. So what's the real connection? Not mechanical, but conceptual and foundational. When we look at ancient African systems compared to modern AI equivalents, ancient African systems, Ifa divination patterns, AI has algorithms and decision trees. Where we had oral traditions, they have data storage and retrieval. Where we have fractal design, they have recursive computation. Where we had Ma'at and Ubuntu, they had AI ethics frameworks. Where we have symbolic systems, they have data encoding. The question is, what role can Ubuntu philosophy play? I call it Sankofa futurism. A combination of learning your past, bringing it to present so that it is now employed for the future. Far too often we get enamored with how great we were and won't take that information and that intelligence and apply it to today's world and for the future. That is the one piece I feel we are missing. So this is why I call on the Gatla, African futurism. On Garvey's birthday, actually the 17th, not the 18th, is I will be starting a Gatla. And Gatla is a term from Botswana, that refers to a traditional assembly or gathering for discussion and decision making. Now more than ever are we in need of coming together to speak on where we see ourselves over the next few years into the future. If you saw the movie Sankofa, in the bottom right, you see Nunu, and Nunu was one of the mothers of the Africans that were enslaved on a plantation. And they wore these red bandanas, and they would have these meetings to speak about their escape, how much resources they had, how many guns, seeds, maps, decision making, and out with other plantations, and when they were going to strike to leave the plantation. Whose house are they going to? Which of Master's houses they were going to burn down first, etc. What I'm saying with the Gauntlet is similar in regards to how we come together as a clergy to think about what can we do individually with our families and collectively to prepare ourselves in case something happens. Should always be prepared. It's better to be prepared than not about what's happening, especially with the AI, with AI on the scene. To me, the book I wrote, 2048, gives you a glimpse of that. If you are interested in purchasing the book, it's at mbwebeishangi.com. I have a book trailer. You can see what the whole book is about. But this book is basically talking about ancestral wisdom and modern engineering, which is equivalent to the liberation that we so desperately desire and need and should have, but it will not be given. We must take it. We must go and create it. Okay. Just some of the things that I'm doing as I'm closing out here is next steps are, getting to a point where we do understand these things. I actually, as an AI generalist, teach more about AI on my site. You can go to Ishangi and learn more about what I teach about artificial intelligence and making us more beginner friendly, aware of what it is, and then learning the capacity that we can use to use it to our benefit. I also have my finance as a financial therapist, because again, if you're too busy having to work and don't have the time to put together the time or the finances to free yourself that your bills are paid for, we need to address that. How do we financially free you so that you do own your time? So then you can now put your time towards the freedom that you're looking to create for yourself and your family. I can help you with that through my financial therapy courses. And also, I have a financial academy where we're talking about developing, putting your funds in certain places that will give you higher yield returns than in the savings account or the stock market. Because again, we are part of this system, and so we do need to build these finances and put us in these spaces where money is in a way that we can live off of, so that we can even finance our own, philanthropize our own freedom. You know what I mean? We can't go to Bank of America and ask them, "Can you give me enough money to free myself?" No, they're not going to do that. And if they did, they charge a high enough interest rate that you couldn't afford it anyway. I also teach steam through my course called Slave Ships, From Slave Ships to Steamships, understanding where we come from and how we actually use this in today's and tomorrow's world of using STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, but it also companies and a lot of other things, agriculture, astronomy, metaphysics, things of that nature as well, that are not talked about and I employ in our courses, because these are things that makes us more rounded about who we are as a people. And I also have an array of books that I've written. Again, I mentioned I've written 10, up to 10. I'm sorry, 8. I'm working on 3 right now. It'll be 11 actually. But these are audio books I have as well for those that might not want to do the flip page, the paperback, etc. I do have ebooks and also audio books. And these are just examples of some. I've written a book about finances called Apocalypse and Intergenerational Wealth Planning for Black people. And also, I mentioned about From Railroads to Robots in 2040 in my 3 latest books that you might want to check out. You can use the QR code or go to Ishangi.com for more information. I'm closing out and thinking, again, closing out with this point of where do we see ourselves? Again, I see ourselves in the midst of hard times, which is going to create some very strong women and men. And I want you to take an assessment of where you see yourself and what position and role do you see yourself in. If things were to come, if hard times were to come, what do you have planned? Do you have water? Do you have seeds? Do you have land? Do you have access to other folks that can have things that can help you get the protection, or even just be able to survive the night? You know, do you have enough things in place to do that? And if you don't, um, one, you're not alone, and two, you need to connect with some other folks to put these things in place. And I'd be happy to help in any kind of way. If you did enjoy this evening's conversation, please feel free to follow if you haven't already. You can also go to my Facebook page and Ishangi, Instagram, etc., IG, TikTok. Also have a podcast on YouTube called WTF, and it doesn't mean what the beep, it means Ways to Freedom podcast show. You can find all that information on embodiedbyshangi.com. And if you also feel enlightened to show your support financially, you can Cash App me or PayPal as well. Those information is right there. Or you can use the QR code again to get more access. I just want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. And I hope that this information moved you in some kind of way to want to move forward, be it with me or with someone else, doesn't matter, but just move, create something, create a plan, learn about yourself, learn about your culture, break the traditional habits that we have had, that we're supposed to work our adult lives and call that adulting. We can have bliss, and we can have direction and protection if we choose so. Madase Pa, give thanks for your time, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you again. Bless.
Thank you so much. And I think you've really challenged a lot of people to take another look at what they've been taught, or shall I say, how we've been programmed, and what they're going to do moving forward. And so I do want to thank you for that. If you have the time, I would like for you to hang out for me backstage so I can close out with you. But if you don't, that's fine.
I
But
do.
I do want to address the audience because today is Nelson Mandela Day, and it's a day that's near and dear to my heart, if that's okay. Would you
Absolutely.
have any last words for the audience before I move you backstage?
I think I've spoken enough. They've heard me enough. I give thanks for your time. I think I've said
Uh,
all.
Okay, okay. Well, yeah, I think your presentation was way more than any of us, including myself, anticipated, but it's definitely a lot to nug on. And it's kind of like a parent. Sometimes you tell people, hey, there's a cycle. Prepare yourself for the next cycle. When things are in to take action if we haven't already. No matter what, we have to move forward because these things keep happening and wealth is being built and we need to be a part of it. And no one is going to save us but ourselves. And so I think when we look at those commonalities that we have, that it's nice for the audience, my audience, to hear somebody else saying similar things. We definitely have our divergences, but I respect your positions and I respect what you're doing enough that's why I wanted to invite you here on our as one of our Juneteenth VIP Master Series. So thank you again. We appreciate you, and I will see you backstage in just a little bit.
All right, but I say bless.
All right, everybody. Um, Give me a second. I didn't want to get this up and risk. I didn't want to get it up and risk messing up his his slides or his videos or things that he had set up. So just give me a second to get this up. If you can give me about maybe 3 more minutes, maybe 2.5. I want to talk to you all about today being Nelson Mandela Day. And of course, I've got this new computer. For those of you who don't know, my computer died. And I was trying to it was dying. It was dying, but I was trying to nurse it through finishing my doctorate. And so I was just not I did not take action. See, when we get the warnings, what does my favorite book say? It says that the wise person sees what's coming down and they take action and they hide themselves or they prepare themselves. And then but the foolish continue on and they are punished. And that is kind of what happened to me with the computer. All right, I think I've got it up and running now. So I just kind of want to talk to you about today. Today is Nelson Mandela Day, and it. This is gonna sound silly. This is gonna sound silly, but July 18th being Nelson Mandela Day is something that a lot of people don't even care about. They just scroll right past it, right? And for me, I really can't just scroll past it because there is a lost my slide. Hold on. Oh, there we go. There is a significant part of my story that's tangled up with his. And so when I was a 10th grader in Frankfurt American High School in Germany, I was actually I was part of a group that protested and signed petitions to free Nelson Mandela. Now, I was late to the game, to be honest. But it was interesting for me to be a part of that group, and I didn't tell my parents, right? Like, when I was in ninth grade, the Berlin Wall fell, and my parents were like, "You are not going with your history class on this trip to get a piece of the wall." Well, I'm so thankful to my history instructor who actually brought a piece back for me, right? And there was another trip we wanted to go on, was to Russia, and my mom was like, "No, they'll kidnap my daughter and she'll never come back." And so I I I don't know if that had anything to do with race. I don't know if that had just a mother's fear, something bad happening to her child when so many other kids were going. My mom was never to make one about race, but I did notice I was the only black kid in the class. And so, I don't know, but she had definitely established a precedent of not wanting me to be involved in hot political issues. So I hid this from her. And for those of you who know the story, Mandela was freed in he was I'm sorry. Let me go back. So it's a 10th grade. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so anyway, it was an exciting time to be an American in Europe. Can we just say it like that? There was a lot happening. The Berlin Wall had just fallen. Now Mandela gets freed the next year. Then the year that I graduated, which we'd already moved from Germany, but the year that I graduated, 1993, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. And then a year after that, he was elected the first Black president of South Africa. So I'm in my freshman year of college. But think about that for a second. In the span of just 4 years, this man went from being a prisoner. He went from being a prisoner to being the president. And you know what? A bunch of teenagers at Frankfurt American High School and whoever else was with us got to say we added our little voices to the noise that helped free him. And if you had asked me 23 years ago, like, are we still going to be in the social economic, racial situation that we're in today? I would have laughed at you. You know what I mean? Because the group of us that protested, it was multicultural. It was Americans, it was Germans, and I don't even know who else was in there, right? There were some like Africans and some Turkish people, but I don't know. I was just a kid like, oh, I'm going to make history. People are going to read my diary like they did Anne Frank, and it's going to be amazing. Well, I wasn't that big of a part of it, but race wasn't important to us at that time. It only became important later, decades later, as we took our places in society's leadership. And for many of us to take our place in leadership, you had to go along to get along. Okay. You had to comply. You had to adopt. So whatever the friends were you had in your youth, the multicultural friends you had in your youth, interesting how you just kind of weeded them out over time because you wanted to be in charge and you wanted to be right with the majority. Anyway, I've told my Nelson Mandela story a couple times to some young people who looked at me like I was lying, y'all. They looked at me like I was some crazy old lady who was just trying to get attention. Now, part of me celebrates that I don't look as old as I am, right? But the other part of me knows that it sounds unbelievable that I inserted myself into that. It sounds delusional. Sounds like a mumbling old lady whose life is passing her by and she's trying to reclaim some significance, I mean, come on, think about it. How could anyone in today's day and age been involved in anything that significant when the most significant thing that most of these kids are doing right now is playing Fortnite? Oh, I won the battle royale, right? Oh, I got an influencer to like my post. Except I actually did make history. I became the first Black physicist in the military. Now, technically, my paperwork says Air Force, but since the rest of the military doesn't have nuclear scientists, I claim the whole military, y'all. And the thing about it is, I didn't set out to make history. A lot of you know this about me. I didn't go to the Air Force Academy because I wanted to make history and do this thing for all of Black people, right? I just wanted a free degree. And my mom made me apply and they accepted me and it was the best deal I had. And I think about how I was just doing my thing with excellence. I had been told I couldn't declare physics, but I wanted to be an astronaut one day and I wasn't PQ to fly, so I knew I had to be a scientist. And I was like, you can't tell me I can't declare my major, right? I had no idea that any historical significance was going to come from that. Because when you grow up overseas, you're all Americans. You're not Black or white, you're not anything. You're Americans. And the way that the way that education is taught in this country, it makes it sound like all that civil rights stuff was just so far away. It's just hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And you just should forget all about it. And let bygones be bygones and let's move forward. But it wasn't that long away when I was the first, and Mandela was the first Black president of South Africa, or prime minister. I think that's what they called it then. I don't remember. I should have looked it up before I started this talk. um, it's recent. There are still Black firsts in our culture, in our country. It's recent. I didn't know that I was doing anything. I just wanted what I wanted, and you weren't gonna tell me I couldn't have it when I met the requirements. I mean, I know I look like a cream puff, but I'm not as much of a cream puff as people think when they hire me thinking I'm gonna be a cream puff, which is why I've lost some I have lost jobs because people have hired me thinking, "Oh, she's gonna be a yes girl. She's gonna be a cream puff." I can't help the way I'm drawn, right? The way the Lord made me, ooh, you know what? It makes people think they can do whatever, but that gets me in a lot of places where I probably shouldn't have been. It got me a lot of intel that I probably shouldn't have. So now I'm thankful for the way I'm drawn. But yeah, you're not going to tell me what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it anyway, unless there's a hard stop or the cost is too high. And you know, I'm going to celebrate Nelson Mandela Day, which is today. Um, I've been celebrating with appreciation and gratefulness for the work that he did that made life easier for people who look like me all over the world, not just in South Africa. And I think about my own journey to being even a small part of history, right? But it shows that ordinary people can do extraordinary things if we'll just take one foot in front of the other. And I don't know what Mandela was like in high school. I mean, did he think he was gonna change the world? I wonder how many of us actually do, you know? I don't know how hard it was sitting in prison for 27 years, how hard it was to keep the faith about what he had been called to do. I don't know how difficult it must have been to walk that walk. I don't know how difficult it must have been with the threats and the other things that he was receiving. But I know one thing, I know he didn't give up. And no matter what came his way, he did the next right thing. And I'm encouraging you to do the same. And one step forward we can take if you have never read or listened to, thanks for technology. If you've never read his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, I want to encourage you to fix that starting tonight. He started writing it secretly while he was in prison, and it takes you from a little boy in a village all the way to his presidency, and you can hear the whole thing in his written voice, not some historians. I especially want young people, especially those of y'all, if you're watching me and you were one of that group that looked at me like I was making this up, I want y'all for sure to read this because it's his story is even harder to believe than mine, and every word is true. I am going to drop the link in the comments. Oh, it's already on the page there, but I'm still going to drop it in the comments. I'm going to drop the link in the comments, and I'm going to encourage you to get a copy of his book. It should be a clickable link right there for you to go and see. And I want you to go do the next right thing. Being here with us tonight. I appreciate you. Much love to all of y'all. Take care and be blessed.